Thank you, Adam. It's a pleasure. And this is actually pretty amazing what's going on here, what Adam put together through a very simple conversation we were having one day in regards to maybe doing a little clinic, something quick, let the community know about it. And what we were talking about was how to tune a drum. It was just that simple. And some people were coming in and asking Adam, and he's real good at it, and to be able to tune their drum up or whatever. So, the drummers should know that. So we thought about, something maybe like that or whatever. Okay, well, now you have all this, okay, with these amazing musicians, drummers. And, it's about the community. It's a big part of that. Something I'm very proud to be a part of, and for a very long time. And it's afforded me the opportunity to go many places and meet lots of amazing people. And in a lot of circumstances, being able to go to a pretty special place in regards to communicating with these other human beings, working in a musical ensemble and working hard, striving for excellence. And it takes a lot of work, getting your experience together. You got to have your fundamentals together. As everything that was stated by Gabe and Paul, how to approach, and that's a lot of these more modern times, so to speak. Now I'm going to go back a ways. Yeah. The whole idea with me was I kind of had this aha moment when I was very young. I was just, I don't know, maybe 4, and I was attending a parade in Lancaster, and I knew my father was a college band director, and the F&M band they were marching and all that. But I'm just this crazy kid just going like, wow, this is wonderful, and all this music and people and all that. But there was this moment, the band's coming down, and I was pretty sure it was probably my dad's band. They sounded pretty good. And they're coming, and I'm hearing them, and I can hear the bass drum, I hear the pulse. I'm just kind of going, that's really cool. And it kept coming, so it's almost like this crescendo, and it's coming to where I was, which that was the moment when I said, that's incredible. That energy was like beyond anything I knew, and I just kind of took that on and went like, wow, I want to do that. The band marches away, so I'm kind of going in that direction to think about, what's with this drumming thing, because it was just amazing. The dynamics, the precision, everything that was taking place there somehow affected me. So I thought like, I want to do that. So then the next couple years, I'm kind of in that place with, I want to play drums. So eventually that happened. My dad said, okay, if you're going to do it, you do it right. You get some lessons and, go through the process. So I did that a couple years with Bob Leiter. It was the Troops Music House back in the day. He was a big band drummer, excellent man. Really, taught all the fundamentals. Gave you that reality check, that if you're going to do anything along these lines, you want to be good. You want to be the best you can be. So there's practice, there's that dedication. So I was in that place, for a while, and then it was the drum set. Then that really started floating my boat. And I thought like, what's this all about? Learning a couple beats, off of records. I'm hearing this stuff and I can kind of figure it out. So the next order of business was a young man that was military that came to F&M, and he was to finish college. He was going to be pre-med, and fine young man. But he had been in the service, and during those times he was serving, but he was serving in the Drum and Bugle Corps. It was the Ruffles and Flourishes of the Marines. And so that meant he could play. So I was taken with that because I was into my rudimental mode. But this guy, one time, my father was doing a recording, And they were doing it at F&M, was what's the Barshinger Center for the Arts now, is old Hensel Hall. My dad was doing a recording session, doing the band and selections from all kinds of marches, concert band stuff. Selections from West Side Story. Okay, really nice thing. And I'm going, oh, that's really cool, but what's he doing? So it was this drummer, Rod Berg, who I just knew was this rudimental phenom. He's on the drum set, and he's playing beautifully. And I didn't know about that. I didn't know that could do that. So I was really taken with that, and that's when I talked to my dad. I said, no, I knew Rod. I'd seen him, riding the bus to football games because I go and travel with my dad. So I said, hey, Pop, how about if I hook up with Rod? It'd be great if I could get some lessons from him because he's just wonderful. And I need that for my drum set. I was just kind of messing around with it. I wasn't really doing that much. He was the answer. He really got me straight pretty quick. I was 12 years old at that point, which really started me on that journey with that instrument. Another love affair, for sure. Not just about rhythm and all that, but no, this was something else. The physicality of it, developing those abilities, the coordinations and the like. I needed somebody to show me how to do it right. And again, I was very fortunate that this man took me under his wing, gave me some lessons and taught me how to do that stuff so I could go play in some bands. And I did that. That was the local mode back in those days. Get in the band and, play. And then you do the fire hall circuit and, all that kind of stuff. And it was just wonderful. Played with a whole bunch of bands, 14, 15, 16. By then I had a little bit of a grip. And then I started, maybe wanting to move into that world. And shortly thereafter in school, I guess cut to the chase, I went down to Philly and started hanging out, meeting people. And in that regard, what I like to say about it is that was the networking mode. Because that's what the whole thing is about. A performing musician, a performing artist. It's that thing. You must be able, as the gentleman had said, be a good guy, hook up, meet people, and you might work. And also back in those days.
Real quick, John.
Yes, sir.
On that thing. When I lived in D.C., my favorite night of the week was Monday. Because nobody was working on Monday night, and everybody went to Iota, which was a club in Northern Virginia, and that's where all the songwriters went, and that's where all the guitar players went, and that's where I went. And I got a lot of work working with songwriters. Like, hey,
that's it.
This weekend is awesome. Hey, I got the song. What are you doing on Wednesday? You want to check some Jones on it? Cool, come on over. Boom, that kind of stuff. Yeah, so.
Absolutely. That's pretty much it. I used to call it, just beating the streets. And that was something I was willing to do because I really had this passion, and it became a love, because it was something that I felt good, as we all would, it's something you can do. And if you maybe can do it okay, but you got a lot to learn. And I found that out real fast. I'm in Philly. Yeah, well, I'm sorry. I won't do that. But the whole idea, though, was, meeting the people, networking, sacrificing, sleeping on the couch or the floor or whatever it would be to be able to do the hang and then, kind of meet enough where you're able to play. And I'm like 17 years old at this point. I know nothing. I'm from Lancaster, Pennsylvania to begin with. So pretty naive, and I'm in the big city, Philly. And so you learn. And again, the community, because, and something was mentioned earlier in regards to, the good people in the business. They're willing to help one another, big time. And that was something that meant a lot to me. Because it was just, like I said, it's like a family, and everybody was on board, to be able to help one another and find some gigs and all that. That time period was, there were, a lot of musicians and people that wanted to do the deed. They wanted to play, but it would depend on, what they were willing to do to accomplish that feat. And one of the requirements was, pack a bag and hit the road. That was really, really important that you were willing to do that. And that's pretty much what happened with me, meeting people in Philly, networking to a point where, I was making some good contacts, hooked up with some of the old agencies because that's how we rolled back in those days. You had an agent that could book the band or maybe even you individually. I had that with a couple outfits over the years. First one, of course, was Norman Joyce, Jolly Joyce Agency in Philly, which is pretty historic. They were, just Norman out of his Philly office. There was a point in time where I think he had almost 100 bands working regularly across the country. And all the venues were available. There weren't as many musicians, lots of venues, everybody's working. Today, not as many venues, and an abundance of incredibly talented young musicians vying for those positions, trying to get into performing, trying to get into everything else you guys mentioned about. There's so many areas in the arts, and you can be involved. And, if anything, try and work toward that place of, like working steadily and maybe surviving, making rent, but moving up the ladder. So I got to do this thing for Jackie. That part was really kind of cool because of, just to meet the people. You're going to travel, you're willing to travel, you get hooked up with a good band, they're connected, they're good enough to be able to do whatever they want to do, play all the joints. So this was an East Coast outfit, bunch of Italian boys in Philly. And I'm 19 and go to Vegas my first time. So that was a whole nother story. That was that. And I went like, I made it. Kind of like that was a thing. That was definitely a pursuit back in those days. If you got to Vegas, that's cool. And so that was where that thing started, with increased opportunities for networking and meeting more people. A lot of players, middle of the road artists, hooking up with some people that would be named, semi-name individuals. I did some of that work through those opportunities, that environment. Just shows, dance reviews. I was with Joe Cavalier, backed up people in the business, whether it's Buddy Greco or Phyllis Diller or whoever. It was really that kind of a situation where I was able to make those inroads and work steadily, and the rep was good. What, Jack?
John, tell them though, like, playing those gigs, how many, like, also the availability of all the lounges that were there, and also tell them how important that kind of playing.
Well, that's pretty much, it's variety.
And tell them how important that is.
Yeah, well, you've got to do your homework, and I was fortunate that, I was able to do that in my studies and all the rest of it. I was preparing all the time. I had great teachers. It took me a while. I got hooked up with Paul Patterson in Philly. He taught everybody. He was the man, and I was very fortunate to get with him. And all he did was teach me how to be a professional musician, professional drummer, how to handle yourself in almost any situation, play all the styles.
Without that experience, though, it's one thing to have it be taught. It's another thing for you to get.
Oh no, you got to go do it.
Yeah, then you were very fortunate.
Well, I just did it all the time. That was my thing, I went to PMA, I went there for a semester, and then that was it. Back on the road, all my buddies I was in school with, they all got their degrees and could actually go teach and have a real job. But no, I was a road dog.
Johnny, you have a real job.
Well,
Real job.
it's like what I was about was just to have it. I'm doing this, and this is wonderful. No reason why I shouldn't. Single guy, no problem. But the thing then was, okay, let's see, 30 years full time. Okay, a little glitch in there I'll talk about. Then 20 years pretty much touring, extended stays in Vegas and Orlando, Florida. And everything else was on the road, playing all kinds of music. After the gig's over, what did I do? Well, I might hit a jam somewhere, a jazz jam, because that kind of was something I was very interested in, but I wasn't playing it much. I knew about it, I had studied it, but, I wasn't able to play it much. But having that knowledge certainly enhanced everything that I was playing that was pretty commercial. It gave me more insight, the depth of the music, the rhythms. I really felt that all the experience, all the listening to all the different kind of music, and my jazz thing was always there from a young age, the big bands, and then starting to hear the real jazz, the bebop in the 50s, all the guys, all the founding fathers. I listened to that stuff and I would just go, yeah, maybe someday I might be able to do that. And that was pretty much my dream in that regard. And after 20 years, I kind of was in that place. I was a little burnt out from all the touring and everything. That can be tiresome, and I was just a working slob. I wasn't hitting any. I had one gig where I had some roadies and stuff like that, but most of the time, But I was working for good people, and the transportation was good. I made good money, and everything was fine. But then it's 20 years in, and time to, think about, well, I don't know, family. My daughter's born. Oh, well, I'm not going to be calling home, from the road or anything. That's how I felt that it was time for the real job. And that was a kind of a little bit of a running joke with my father, because he always supported me, but he also was in there hardcore letting me know that, it's a tough racket. And that, we know that. But you prepare and you do your work. But then this point came, what are we going to do now? Well, I was in Orlando, subbing at Disney. Everything was corrupt. It was a real nightmare, actually. That's a whole nother story unto itself that I could relate. I did that thing in the Vegas scene too. I was there when it was, the good old boys running things, and that was a good run. They took care of business, all that, and then here comes corporate. That was a whole nother story. Overnight, the whole industry changed out there. Overnight. Howard Hughes and all those guys, buying up the land. And the good old boys it was trouble. They were in trouble. Rico was in, so they wanted to get out anyway. They were more than happy to sell those hotels. So there's all that stuff. There's all that stuff that goes on. But anyway, the wife and I decide, where are we going? Well, how about Lancaster? Oh, yeah, it's pretty good. Raise a family. Not bad at all. So we ended up moving here. And that was in 1979, 80, yeah. And that was the fun part. I didn't have to worry too much right away, but I knew it was time for a real job. My father was there saying, time for a real job, huh? Yeah. So what did I do? Well, I was getting some clothes to be able to go do interviews because I had a lot of show busy stuff. So I ended up going to Devano's Menswear to get a regular suit. Okay? So I'm in that place, and I go over there, and I get a job there. I'm just buying some clothes, but then I ended up getting a retail sales job selling suits. And I did that for a little while, didn't know what else was going to happen. Gradually got back on the scene for freelancing, playing for some people, and just kind of going to start networking again and maybe do a little playing on the side. But I knew I wasn't going to be selling suits. I knew that wasn't going to happen, for long. But then another moment, because there's always been these transitions and these blessings that have hit on me. I'm just doing a couple gigs. I'm playing at the Open Hearth on 2nd Street in Harrisburg. Jazz Club, Thursday night jazz. And I was just sitting in for, who called me? I had to play for him. It was, I think it was Dave Lasorchak, the great drummer up in Lebanon County. And he said, John, you go do this jazz thing, just playing standards. And with 3 superlative musicians from the area. And it was a blast. It was a lot of fun just playing standards. And that was the night that Third Stream came into the club. They were up the river. I think they were at Penn State. They were doing a concert or something. And they stopped in the club, Thursday night jazz. Normally, the band played there every Thursday, except this one. Every month they played. So they just stopped in the club, and I was playing. I remember Phil DeAngelis walked up. Backstage, he walks up to me, he looks at me, he goes, "Who are you?" And I looked at Phil and I said, well, who are you? You know, he said, oh, man, I'm Phil. You like to come over to the bar, buy you a taste, like to talk to you. So I was Jim Miller and Phil at the bar, and they just, you know, started talking about like, you know, we're having a little bit of an issue with our drummer, and we're looking maybe to replace, and you might be the man. So I went to Stroman's house, auditioned. They offered me the job. That was 42 years ago. And it's just that reality of like, I wanted to play jazz, okay? I wasn't probably going to really want to do much else, but the jazz thing, and with this band, which was the preeminent musical ensemble, jazz ensemble in Central PA, just that simple. Great players, the best players around. And there it was, you know, another blessing. And so that's what I, you know, have continued to do. The 80s was full-time with Third Stream. If I wasn't with Stream, I was with Steve Rudolph, whatever, just playing locally, but making a living. Started at Drums Etc. in 1985 when Rick opened the store, the Closet, over on Plum Street, and started teaching. So that was part of my drill. And it was pretty good, but it was still thinking about that real job. Thinking about the bennies. You know, you got a family. You know, I'm just on the hustle, man. That's all I'm doing. I'm a working musician. You know, no unemployment, no nothing. You know, that's not, you know, the way, it's not comfortable. You have to think about that, you know, family and what the future's going to be. So that became a reality, and another blessing that I was able to get into an industry and just learn a lot of stuff and have a real job and have benefits and health insurance and all the rest of it, but still continue to play. And that worked out, you know, because I really wasn't going to freelance that much. I was going to make sure that I was making the Third Stream gigs, and if I needed any time off on the day gig, which was rare, I could get it. The people were very accommodating. So, you know, but I handled that well. I didn't abuse it or anything. So I could get off for a gig if I needed to do that. And just was able to manage that, and with a real job, and raise a family, boy and a girl, put them out in the world, get them through college, you know, all the rest of it. And, you know, just be grateful for that experience, you know. And that's where I'm at now. It's just all about gratitude and just, you know, hanging in there. That was a big part of it. You just got to stay the course. Perseverance, I mean, beyond anything, because the business will beat you up when you're just in that level, that working guy. You know, and then what are the other options? Many. Paul, you just rated so much, and same with Gabe, you know. All the possibilities that are present, you know, to be involved in the arts and to be able to utilize that precious creative energy that we all have. And some folks just want to really go a little bit further with that, you know, and they will work really hard to accomplish that. And I know so many, I know lots, you know, because that's what happens when you're touring a lot and you're playing a lot of bands. You know, I played in a lot of bands, a lot of shows, lots. And that just gives you some experience, and then you can probably go and get it done and grow to where you want to evolve further as a performer, as an artist. That's why I wanted the jazz thing. And then I was able to do that. And be able to really draw on a lot of the studies I had, too, early on, with some of the great teachers I had. You know, Paul Patterson, Armin Santorelli, Jim Blackley, Sonny Igo, you know, Tommy's dad. He really was, it was Paul and Sonny. They were the men that really made an impression on me. Because they were really good men and absolute, just really way over the top. Knowledge-wise and being able to perform, they really had something special. The groove. Go.
Those guys that you mentioned,
yes.
Like your Tommy's dad, right, and then the other guy, your other teacher. Like I was asked this question a few years ago, like who are the people that been most influential in your life? right?
Mm-hmm.
First I called my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And then right after that was like,
Oh, yeah.
Dr. Olmsted, Mr. Cole. My two drum teachers, my two primary drum teachers I've had in my life. Well, I question you though, were those guys part of that old school, well, you're part of that old school. So were they part of the older school? Where?
John, it's okay,
So-
man, you look good, brother.
That's what I told them. That's why I prefaced with that before I do the old joke.
Yeah.
But were those guys
They were in that
very,
old
very
community.
much gentlemen?
Oh,
Gentlemen,
ridiculous.
Gentlemen, like just very just great people. You know? So I think
Phenomenal.
You know, I had them all say, like, our teachers were just great, they were just fantastic human beings.
Absolutely.
And fantastic players and fantastic teachers.
Really something else in all ways. Probably the top of the, and I wish I would have had more time with Jim Blackley. Well, Jim, when he was in New York City, he was there, I think he only spent about 4 years until he finally said, oh, I'm going back to Canada. This place is crazy. You know, so that would, yeah. But he was there, and he was, you know, courted to go there. A lot of people, I think one person that really drove, Jake Hanna was a big supporter. Danny Richmond, you know, from Monk, he big time. You got to come to New York City. That's where it's at, man. You know, you got to do it. And he did. And just had so many, you know, students and everything. He was overwhelmed.
Just from like he's got some good, just good, genuine people.
Yeah, yeah.
Who are in the business.
Yeah, and
You hear stories sometimes about like, how people were just bad people in the business, right? And that's why I was thinking about latching on to a teacher who's like a really great person.
Yeah,
You know, who can show you the right way to do things instead of
Absolutely.
like the
absolutely.
backwards way. Right?
Yeah. Well, you know, I got lessons with Paul Patterson in Philly at Music City through an old friend that I had met, and he liked me, and he kind of recommended me, and then eventually I was able to get lessons. Joe Savage was his name, Philly drummer, top notch, and so that's how I got with Paul, and he just threw everything at me. You know, all the styles, get playing.
Did you do any session work in Philly?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, down there. Some of that came later.
Okay.
Most of my recording experiences were in Florida. And I did, you know, good studios. The good stuff we had in Orlando. I did Criteria down in Miami. You know, walking down the hallway and the Bee Gees are coming this way. And I'm going, it's the Bee Gees, man. You know, but that was a top shelf studio. Still is. So those things, that mattered because that opened up, and that was the real deal too. I did plenty of little, you know, sessions here and there and everything, but some of those were a little bit more involved. Was doing some, commercial music for commercials. I did a lot of stuff for a Spanish television station in Miami, that kind of thing. And but it gave me that experience, and at that level, and I was able to pull it off. But I learned so much in the doing at that level, you know. And they don't want to waste no time, and I know you guys know all about that too. And we were pretty efficient, you know, and that did make a difference. But again, you're just dealing with experienced people that come together. They speak the same language. Let's do our job. You know, and that was pretty much it. You know, I had all that, again, the blessings. Because all I want, and I believe in, you know, the power of intention, you know, big time. And that was something that I even remember as a young kid, the energy. And like I said about the marching band stuff, that got into my soul, man.
You mentioned that. I've heard that story, I don't know, 40, 50 times.
Oh, heck yeah.
From different people. That's how they got to do it. I heard it come from down the street. It was like Memorial Day, 1957.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah, just, you know, something. And I went like, wow, that's really amazing. And I liked a lot of other stuff too and everything, but that was primary. That was number one. And then I just wanted to pursue it, and I drove my parents crazy, you know, in that regard, because I talked about it all the time, you know. But I was too young. I was moved, but I didn't know why. And then I wanted to pursue. And then when it was time, and my father thought it was time, and he put me with some lessons. Said, if you're going to do this, you're going to do it right, And so I learned the fundamentals with Bob, and that made all the difference in the world for me to be able to continue to understand what I was trying to do, because I had all that rudimental thing because of the marching band and hearing the guys at the school. I was 10, and I probably had my 13 essential drum rudiments together pretty tight. Chop thing. And I had that period too. I just thought I was a hot shot, because I had these fast hands and all the rest of it. I wasn't too sure what kind of music I was playing.
There were a lot of notes.
Huh?
There were a lot of notes in it, though.
Oh. Yeah, well, then that changes over time too. Chops for days and, classical snare drum. I did that at PMA. That's why I was at PMA. And that got me in, because I could pull that off just in the snare drum because I had done that. But I really wanted to, have the drum set and be able to work that and whatever, follow my dream, And there were hard times early on, first couple years, and it's always good when you're deciding if you're going to actually do it. Are you serious about this or what? First couple years, and if you're out there doing it, you're going to find out because you're going to be in that early stage, and it can be a little rough. I call it my Bar Wars era. Up and down the East Coast, playing in some joints. But I was playing rock and roll, soul music, a lot of soul music. I did that a lot. Ended up with some bands from the South. Ended up playing in, a little bit different vibe. That happened too. I started noticing the difference in attitude and the way everybody performs in different locations around the world and certainly around our country. First one was North and South. It was a real different kind of a vibe that was going on. The groove, what's happening here? So that really started continuing me to be so interested in rhythm, But anyway, something I was going to say just a moment ago in regards to like the chops and all that kind of stuff. And over time, there's a lot of notes in there, but now all of a sudden there's less notes. And I'm certainly in that place, being an older person, the chops aren't the same. Arthritis, the hands are messed, So, things get better maybe musically, a little more in depth. What's happening? You don't need all that, don't need all that. But when you can do it, it's wonderful because you're in another zone. You're not thinking about what you're doing. It just flows. It just flows. The hands, like they're just doing their thing. You're thinking of what you're supposed to be doing. What's going on in the music here? Where's it start and end? What's the form? And you play within that and try and be musical, without overdoing it, being obnoxious and overplaying, And we find out about that through those experiences real fast. Because the rest of them are going to tell you, right? Guys are going to look at you, man, don't do that, dude. Do not do that. So, there it is, guys. I don't know. We're good.